Thank you.
Oh, okay. Carberry Montgomery,
Here.
Obrecht,
Here.
Hoagie,
Here.
and Russell, have you joined us? At this time, I have Russell and Blake as absent.
Okay. Thank you. We'll see if they join us. Thanks, Nicole. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Pogie, second by Obrecht. Discussion, roll call.
Hoagie,
Yes.
Obrecht,
Yes.
Carberry Montgomery.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item 3 is our regular agenda, and first is item 3.1, a presentation by the Neighborhood Finance Corporation. AJ, I'll turn it over to you to introduce this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council. Again, we had canceled our March Lunch and Learn meeting due to all of the activity going on, but since we're all getting a little bit more used to having these video meetings, we thought it was still important to have our April Lunch and Learn meeting. And this really fits into a lot of your strategic discussions that you had late in the year in 2019 and carried over into your budget discussions. And we made arrangements previously with the representatives from the Neighborhood Finance Corporation to provide an overview of the program and answers council's questions about how that might be a fit for the city of Urbandale in addressing some of your strategic priorities. We have on the line today with us Stephanie Preusch. Am I saying that correctly, Stephanie? Stephanie, did I pronounce your last name correctly? Preusch?
Yes, it's.
All right, thank you. I wanted to make sure. Stephanie is representative from the Finance Corporation, has worked with John Collier from our staff to get this set up. We have distributed previously the PowerPoint presentation, which Stephanie now will go through with you. And I guess in earlier conversations that she had with Nicole, is that as she goes through the presentation, if you have questions or you want to have some additional discussion on any particular point, please jump in. Is that correct, Stephanie?
That is. And can you hear me okay? I feel like I'm echoing.
I'm looking around. Are we getting thumbs up from everybody that you can hear Stephanie? Okay, Stephanie, I think we're in good shape. The floor is yours, so to speak.
Okay, I think I'm echoing to me, so I'm gonna change to go one thing that I thought would make it better and it made it worse. So lesson learned. Hopefully all of you living in the Polk County area know of Neighborhood Finance Corporation, and I appreciate this opportunity to present. As stated earlier, please just stop me. I know this format's sort of odd and I can't pick up on your facial cues, but please just stop if you have questions. As many of you know, Neighborhood Finance Corporation has been around for 30 years. This is actually next month is our 30th anniversary. We were formed to facilitate neighborhood revitalization as part of a larger effort within the city of Des Moines. Here's some quotes that were in the paper at the time we were started, sort of what was going on in the Des Moines area. We are a nonprofit. We're a licensed mortgage company by the Iowa Division of Banking, and we now operate in partnership with the city of Des Moines, Cedar Rapids, West Des Moines, Windsor Heights, and Polk County. And then it only works because of our partnerships with the business community, local financial institutions, and neighborhoods. Here's just a quick overview of sort of what we do. We have purchase loans, finance, home improvement, and then our front porch exterior loan, which is essentially a home improvement product for home improvement loans. And so when you think about Neighborhood Finance Corporation, we really are a piece of a larger initiative that a local government wants to do around keeping older neighborhoods strong. We provide access to capital and to forgivable loans that come from the local cities and the counties, Polk County. And we provide that financing so that when people are looking at purchasing a home or deciding to make an investment on a home that they live in an older neighborhood, it maybe makes more financial sense because a lot of times older neighborhoods don't have the appreciation and value that a newer area may have. And so you see some disinvestment because it's hard for people, first-time home buyers, for instance, that may be interested in purchasing a home in a neighborhood. It's hard for them to come up with the money to purchase it as well as do the improvements, whether those are deferred maintenance or things to make the home viable in the current market, like updating bathrooms and kitchens and having a 2-car garage and things like that. So that's really where our product comes into play. And then also in neighborhoods where people are like, well, I love my house, but I want a new kitchen or a 2-car garage. These are a lot of things we do, and I need a roof as well. And to do those things, I'm not going to see the value on a dollar for dollar basis. And so the forgivable loan money that's up to $10,000 helps make that decision a better economic decision. So every loan that we do is a repayable loan. So we do the repayable loan as a licensed mortgage company, and then it's paired with the forgivable loan, and that's the money that comes from the local governments. And then I have some about sort of some of the investments that we've had over our 30 years. Any questions so far? 5 years ago, for our 25th anniversary, we had a study done sort of trying to measure impact because we haven't done a great job of doing that. We're trying to look at new ways all the time as data becomes easier to understand and manipulate. And so we had a graduate student look at the neighborhoods that we serve, which is that top corner. And we looked at our core neighborhoods that we've been in basically the whole 25 years at that time. And compared increase in value as compared to other similar cities in Iowa. It's hard because a lot of, the floods both in Iowa or in Des Moines and Cedar Rapids are in play. But we could see that there had been some improvement, more value in the 10 years there. And then we did the full since 1990 year, just trying to determine, what impact we've had. I will tell you that the foreclosure crisis had a big impact on the neighborhoods that we serve. And I assume that probably this crisis will as well. Some of the area neighborhoods that we serve were some of the highest nationally for foreclosures, especially early on in the crisis. Just to give you a little bit of our impact, we have done as many as 300 loans, 310 I think was our highest a year. We usually are in that 200 range is sort of our sweet spot. With the addition of Cedar Rapids, we would like to see our lending grow a little more. To give you an idea of how much, I have another slide on this as well, but sort of what does it take? So like, for instance, last year, we also, I guess, and I should stop here for a second, we, over the past 3 years approximately, have administered significant down payment money through 2 national programs, Project Reinvest and Neighborhood Lift. Probably most people have heard of Neighborhood Lift. It was a big Wells Fargo initiative. So that's tied into this, that $15.6 million in lending to 430 borrowers last year. That's because we did so many down payment loans. But our core lending was $11.8 million. That included $1.5 million of forgivable loan subsidies, that $10,000 up to $10,000. And that generated $3.5 million of home renovations in the neighborhoods that we serve. And we do 259 down payment loans. then down below, you sort of see how that broke out. 53 of them were purchases. And then the remainder of our loans were to existing homeowners, whether they chose to refinance or get a home improvement loan. So that continues to be the bulk of our business, our existing homeowners. I'll just keep going unless anybody has any questions at any point, please. This just gives you some information about us as an organization. We're able to do what we do because of the commitment that we've had year after year from primarily the city of Des Moines and Polk County. In the past few years, we've added other partners. Part of our success is because we are a NeighborWorks America organization, which is a national nonprofit that is an organization of local housing nonprofits. The other one in Iowa is Community Housing Initiatives, that you may be aware of. They do more affordable rental housing. But by being a NeighborWorks organization, it provides us access to capital and also to training. That's how we got access to both the LIFT and the Project Reinvest Down Payment Program. We also are able to take neighborhood groups to trainings. And we received a grant to help the city of Des Moines with their flood loans after the flooding in June of, was that 2018, I believe. So that's sort of just some of the recent. We also sell loans to Fannie Mae, which is unique in the nonprofit world to be able to do that. So our purchase and refinance loans pretty much all conform to Fannie Mae guidelines, and that gives us enough capital to do the level of lending that we're doing. Because we're able to sell those loans, we don't have to only raise that money locally. We're also a community development financial institution, also known as a CDFI, and we access money through the U.S. Treasury. We can get it at lower rates. We've been very successful in future years at grants, and then we recycle that money so that we're able to do a purchase loan without private mortgage insurance, and we do a second mortgage instead. And also that's what funds our front porch home exterior program. So we have more flexible underwriting guidelines because it's our own money and we have it a pretty high reserve on it so that if people default, we don't experience a large loss. And then you may know we build 10 to 15 homes or renovate a year in the neighborhoods that we serve, and that we expanded to Cedar Rapids in 2018. I wanted to talk a little bit about the down payment resources. The purpose, as I understand this conversation, is to see if there's ways for NFC to partner with the city of Urbandale, which is an exciting opportunity to think about. In one way, we've talked with West Des Moines about this. We've talked with other cities in Eastern Iowa, is administering down payment money. This isn't something that we did before 2016, but we've been very successful in doing it. So sometimes the issue is not as much renovation of homes, but affordability. And so this is a way to create affordability in a community. And by providing people, we've provided as much as $17,500 through Neighborhood Lift to our existing program, which is $10,500. And what we've been able to do for our own borrowers is recycle some of this money that we've received and raise some other funds through grants so that we have it for our own borrowers, and we call that Neighborhood Reinvest. When we were doing the down payment programs, we did do 36 down payment loans in Urbandale. Almost $500,000. So we do have a presence. We do have loans, whether they're deferred or forgivable on some homes, but we did not provide the first mortgage financing on those. Another local bank did. So that's just something to think about. Any questions about the down payment programs? Here is our existing lending area, and I know this is hard to see on this. I did provide a link if you want to go online and look at it. you can go to our lending area map. It gives you an idea. So we lend in all of the green, the purple, the pink on the main Des Moines map. And then in this, basically the southern part of Windsor Heights, south of University, and then in 2 areas of West Des Moines. A pretty big chunk of the city. Any questions about that?
This is AJ. The question I had for you that I've heard before, maybe you're going to get to it, is are there requirements for the eligibility of neighborhoods? Do they have to be included in a census tract that has a predominance of low and moderate income families?
Yeah, so we as a CDFI are required to have 75% of our lending to be to either lower income, moderate families or in lower moderate income census tracts, or areas that are contiguous to a lower moderate income census tract. We can sometimes get those in. So then I'm going to go to our next slide here. Looking at Urbandale. I didn't do all of Urbandale because I assumed you weren't really interested in the new parts. But looking at it, when 104.09 is contiguous to a low mod census tract, and so is 104.08. So there, I don't know where you're thinking of, but those they don't always have to be low mod census tracts. They can be contiguous, and sometimes they'll let us count them, with the whole idea that you don't want to let an area that is near one, you want to provide capital to keep it strong. Does that make sense? So it's, so that would be a discussion, because we have to really, like Des Moines will say to us, well, just lend everywhere. Well, I think it would look odd to say that we were putting public money into a nice fancy neighborhood where the regular market is doing just fine. And in all honesty, people don't take advantage of our programs. In some neighborhoods, in West Des Moines, we get here and there home improvement. But if the regular capital market is working okay for those borrowers, especially on a home improvement loan, since the percentage isn't the full 10,000 usually, they'll just go to their local bank. Does that answer your question? And I assume those are the 2 areas that you were sort of thinking of, those 2 census tracts that are next to Des Moines.
So this is Adam. The 104.05 and I think maybe it's 06. Is those also contiguous or not?
No, it would just be the 2 here. Now that doesn't mean that we don't do areas that aren't, but it really, we can't do very much of it. And so we have to balance all, we have to balance all of our partners, and we do some of West Des Moines that's not, we do some of Des Moines that's not, some of Cedar Rapids, and sort of give everybody a little piece of it. Now, one thing that I was saying is that a lot of people don't take advantage of our programs unless the market isn't working. So what we find out happening a lot is that lower income folks are able to buy homes in the higher income census tracts. So we still end up getting, even though it's not when the census tract isn't counted, we get borrowers that count. Does that make sense?
It does. And it's just, I was looking at those because I think the age of some of the homes in those areas are, 1980s, early 90s, maybe even some older ones in those. So I was more looking at age of home versus income.
Yeah. And that's, something that we look at. So this is just some things that, I think about, our board thinks about when we thought about, expanding our, we've done home improvement loans in West Des Moines for a long time, but we now are doing all of our lending. But we find that we're most successful when we are part of a larger revitalization strategy, whether that's projects that are planned by the municipality in that area or other things that are going on with other nonprofits. We are not income driven, so our program has more bells and whistles for lower income folks, but anybody in income can take advantage of our program. And then again, our goal is that 75% of our loans meet one of those, what we call our target market. And that is because that makes us competitive for additional funds through the CDFI, which is what we need to continue. It might be helpful to look at like what an investment looks like. So if we have $3 million in private lending, what other money is needed to leverage that? And so this is just our basic sources and uses, and I'll just walk through it. So I said we sell loan to Fannie Mae, so that's the 2.3 million. And then we sell loans to the local banks. We sell them all of our home improvement loans. And then our purchase and refinance, we have sort of different reasons that we would sell them to them, whether it doesn't conform. They allow us to do a few things that we can't through Fannie Mae, or sometimes those larger rehab projects, things like that. We just afraid don't fit in the box very well. And then we have our own money through our front porch home exterior program. And then we do a 2% interest second mortgage on purchase and refinances when the borrower doesn't have 20% down or 20% equity. The loans that we sell are all 80% loan to value. And then it would require 28,000 forgivable mortgages. You know what? I just found a typo in here and I apologize. Switch those two rows. It's the 323,000 is for home renovation and the 28,000 is for closing costs. I apologize. And then city or county. So we use our public money to do a loss reserve on those loans that we sell to the local banks. And then our own funds that we have for down payment resources. I want to talk a little bit about the offering documents. So we are on offering 18 here in Des Moines area. We have gone out every year to every 3 to 4 years to the banks, depending on how fast we're burning through the capital. We now have our largest ability to sell to Fannie Mae, so we're going out about every 3 years. And that is, I think right now there's 12 banks in the Polk County area that are participating for $18 million. $15 million in Des Moines. We have another $8 million with Cedar Rapids Lending Institution. So that's just a really amazing thing that year after year, we have been able to go out and raise that kind of capital for lending. And part of that is due to, the nature of our community. And part of it, I think, is due to that we've delivered a pretty good product that performs fairly well so that they do get some return on that investment. So then this just sort of groups the funds different ways to show leverage for you, and then how many renovations. Sort of a 1 to 8. Questions about that? That's all I have. What other questions do you have? What should we be talking about? What did I miss? I'll leave this screen up since it's more.
So maybe AJ, you'll get to this later too, is what is the ask from Urbandale then to participate? Is it we sign up for all of it and the amount of dollars we commit gets us into the programs? Kind of, what does that look like?
Yeah, so lessons learned, like Windsor Heights came to us a couple of years ago and said that they wanted to do it, but we really aren't part of a larger effort that they have going on. And, they've had some turnover there too. And so we really haven't done much lending. So I think, I would be interested to know from you, like, what's your goals and what are you trying to achieve? Because just to have us lending there doesn't seem to, yes, we help 1 or 2 homeowners, but I don't feel like we have the kind of impact that you're wanting to see. So then that's why I sort of put the down payment in there, because I thought, well, maybe that's a better fit. So basically, if you wanted to do, when I look at this, 50 loans over 3 years, what would be your commitment? And your commitment would be the let's just say $500,000, right, for this total city and our county funds to generate this level of lending, if you want to do that. And so that would be a 28E agreement. Now, I should say we're in the middle of a phase offering that doesn't include Urbandale. So we would either need to wait 2 years or so till we have the next phase offering, or I would have to go out and raise additional funds through another pool, because I can't amend that one. So it was just sort of happened that Windsor Heights came forward and wanted to do it at the same time we were doing the phase offering. Now, if you just wanted to do the down payment, like you had some TIF money or something like that, and you want to do things like that, that's a lot easier. We have sort of those programs in a box and that out there. Does that answer?
Yeah, and I guess kind of some of our initial discussions were more around the home remodeling programs, and just more personal experience. I've had some people do that. I think it's $10,000 going towards a home remodeling that's forgiven over 5 years. Is that part of that pool? And you have to do the primary financing to be part of that pool. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. So let me explain that a little bit more, how our program works in more detail. I sort of went over that fast, but yeah. So if someone wants to purchase a home, they would get their loan to purchase through us. And that's going to looks very similar to a bank loan as far as like underwriting guidelines. Like, we're not a lender of last resort. We have pretty high credit standards and all of that. But the difference is that they can get a $10,000 forgivable loan for repairs. They don't have mortgage insurance because we do the second mortgage. So they're earning equity a lot quicker, because instead of paying mortgage insurance, they're paying down a loan at 2% interest for that second loan. And they can borrow additional money to do repairs. So it's not just the $10,000. So we do a lot of loans where people are doing $30,000 or $40,000 in repairs. And that's really finding that house that's not selling or is going to go to an investor to be a rental in your older neighborhoods, and making it now interesting to a first-time home buyer because they can get that money to fix it up and then have a really affordable mortgage. That's how our purchase works. The refinance works much the same. And that if they don't have 80, if they have less than, they don't have a full 20% equity, they get the second mortgage. So again, they're paying that down. They can get $10,000 forgiven, but most often people borrow a lot more than that to do additional repair. And then the home improvements, it's a portion of the total project, up to half or $10,000. And the portion that's forgiven is either a quarter, a third, or half, depending on the household income. What we find though is lower income folks tend to borrow less money, and so they make it like average 7,000, whereas higher income folks borrow more money, so they still get a similar size for just not as much of the project is forgiven. And we've been at the 10,000 forgivable loan for I want to say at least 15, 20 years. We were 7,500 when we first started, and at some point that may need to be increased, which would mean that we would burn through our public money more quickly. But if you think about it, I mean, a little bit about me, I started at NFC as one of the first employees. I left for 15 years and did other stuff, but I came back 6 years ago. And, when I was there before, you could do a very large roof for $5,000. Easy. And now, that's not the case. And a furnace was a couple of $1,000s. Now that's not always the case. I think we could do a furnace and an air conditioner for $3,000. So things have gotten more expensive. We all know that.
Hi, this is Bridget. I'm obviously a big cheerleader for the NFC, having worked with them in my career with Des Moines. and know the value. What I'm, I guess, most interested, I mean, is the home purchase product. I think we don't have a larger like revitalization effort going on, but I think we do have a lot of homes in our older neighborhood could fit from rehabilitation portions of the program and really help stabilize slowly, but stabilize the housing stock in those areas. So that's really why I want to see the NFC come to Urbandale. I think the down payment assistance program is great, and I'd love it. I'd like to see us offer that, but I also think it's my intention would be to have the NFC help with some of the rehab projects that these older homes need.
And this, Bridget, I mean, sometimes a revitalization plan can be, plans for new streets and sidewalks. It's not like a huge, we're gonna do, but it's nice to have, it works better. I will tell you, when you can somehow, as the city, help us garner neighborhood pride. We've been super successful whenever we've gone into Beaverdale. And, part of that is because it's Beaverdale and people have such pride there anyways. But when people when a neighborhood rallies around it, and it's sort of like a point of neighborhood pride, we do a lot better. We have a lot more impact.
The takeaway that I see from this is that we have, a suite of options essentially that we can look at. I think we're going to start with, from what I understood, the rehabilitation program, and then, but if we get good participation and we can leverage other funds to do this, we might expand this as we move along. Is the way I see it.
Yeah, and so West One's just my best reference because it's sort of a similar, has some similarities. And so that's sort of where we are. We've been doing our lending programs there for quite a while. And then they are like, well, we want you to do stuff out further west. And I just said, well, we can't because of our CDFI. So that's sort of where the down payment discussion came up. We have not launched that yet.
This is AJ. Did I hear you say that funding on a variety of these programs would be available for non-owner occupied?
It's not. I didn't mean to say that if I did. They're only for owner occupied.
Thank you.
I think what I was saying, and maybe I wasn't clear, is that a good option for, instead of them being bought by investors, to be rentals. Because you see that in older neighborhoods a lot. A house will come on the market and there's just no way a first-time home buyer could buy it because it needs a new roof and they don't have the money for a new roof and they can't get FHA financing. And so that's where we're a great option. Because at the end of the day, they're going to get a new roof and have a lower house payment than they would have on that FHA loan without the roof being done.
This is good again. What sort of, I don't know if this and maybe Bob Brownell, I mean, what sort of money do you think that we could, and maybe Stephanie can jump in here too, as a starting point for a city investment?
Yeah, so I think, the $500,000 mark for like a 3-year commitment. I mean, this is why this is the page that I'm on was sort of my guess, like how many loans would we do? So I have 419,000 here. One thing that we look at is that we don't want to go into anywhere when there isn't a commitment to do it. We are not interested in going into Urbandale for 2 years or 3 years. Like we want to, if we would do that, we would want to sort of know that you all are on board for a while. And then the other piece to consider, and we don't really have a rule book for this, is that all city money or is it a city county mix? In West Des Moines, it's all city money. In Windsor Heights, it's a mix. So that's just sort of what the cities have come up with.
Bob, if we put in, for example, I thought we were looking at initially for the first year, 100,000. We do match Polk County funds with that, don't we?
Right, that's what we've traditionally done. Can you hear me okay? Hopefully I'm unmuted.
Nope, you're good. You're good.
Okay, good. Yeah, traditionally that's what we've done. I think the largest we've done prior to this was matching in West Des Moines at 75K. And not to say that we wouldn't do more, but that's typically what we've done. And what we've talked about, Bridget and I, and Matt and others, and Bob, has been the home renovation piece to get started with that. And I'm not trying to talk anybody in or out of anything. I just kind of saying that's what we've talked about in the past is the home renovation piece. That's you put in some money, the county puts in some money on top, and then you've got a pool of money that you can kind of designate neighborhood or two. You have to do that, and then say how much that you're willing to put up as far as loan money goes. The nice thing about it is Neighborhood Finance Corp administers all of it, and it's not income based, so you don't have to jump through those hoops. But anyway, that's kind of what we talked about in the past.
Okay.
So Bob, with that, you mentioned 100,000. Was that the amount that we split with Polk County, or each entity puts in that amount?
I think we try to match that, so you'd have a pool of 200.
And that's I thought where our discussion was at budget time. We were looking at
And then future forward, then you're going to either do it on your own or not do it at all, or maybe amend the amount or something like that. But we like to get people started. And Stephanie said we've partnered up with Windsor Heights, and we've partnered up with West Des Moines too, some years ago. And so it's not unprecedented. Plus, we put in, what is it, Stephanie? We put in $1 million a year into NFC right now. Yeah. So we're pretty committed to it.
Then Stephanie, you mentioned kind of a 2-year time lag to maybe get the documents working. Is that with the home renovation, or was that a different program?
That's with this program. So right now I don't have an offering document. Now that doesn't, we're just talking, right? Like I have a board that makes all the decisions. I'm just sharing with you the reality. I know that in the past when we had like West Des Moines came up, we ended up doing a specific offering document, sort of mid-offering, and got like a few banks to participate. And there's probably some appetite for that, banks that maybe didn't participate last time. And we're a nice way for them if they're having any trouble with their community reinvestment tax stuff to do an investment. So it would probably be possible to go raise some money, but there would be some cost associated with that. So we just sort of have to talk about how we would do that. So it's sort of, besides just hearing that you all were interested, I didn't have a good sense of things. So I'm just trying to put stuff out there, and then I'm more than happy to have further discussions and go back to the board, and once I know what sort of your intentions are. Is that helpful? I feel like I should say too, like with the forgivable loan money, we understand how fortunate we are to be in a community that supports our organization like this. We have recycled the money that we've received. Like half of it has been recycled more than once. So people do pay it back. We don't use it. We put it for last reserves. And we often don't use that because our loans do perform very well. So we really do honor that money. It's not, we don't use it for admin. It just goes out to support activities in your community.
Any further questions or discussion from the council at this time? If not, Stephanie, thank you for the presentation. I think at this point, then maybe we just need to keep working further internally and come up with a plan. We have something come up, we can have some action item on the future council meeting that we can then take back and have something in place for our next fiscal year.
Yeah, just let me know where you're thinking so I can look at census tracts and see if that's possible and sort of have a discussion with the board. That would be what I would ask, so I know what direction you're going. Okay? Great, thank you so much. Sorry about my technical issues at the beginning. And now I'll figure out how to get out of here. So I'll just give me a second.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thanks.
All right. We are back then. So then we will move on to item 3.2, and that's to discuss the business recovery assistance options. And AJ, I'll turn it back over to you to start us off there.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Also, I know will be part of our discussion today will be Supervisor Bob Brunell. He's been very active in the discussions for the last several weeks with numerous cities throughout Polk County and with the Des Moines Partnership in looking at ways that we can prepare not only prepare local businesses for post-COVID-19 reality and but also during this crisis to keep as many businesses, particularly small businesses, viable so that they are prepared to come out of whenever the recovery starts. And obviously it'll be phased and it will some businesses will come back faster, some will take a little bit more time. And the reality is some businesses won't come back. So I know there's been quite a bit of discussion. And again, I would say thank you to Supervisor Brunell for coordinating a lot of those discussions with cities and with, for example, Des Moines Partnership. Again, we had sent out, I'd sent out on Friday kind of a teaser, if you will, for the council to consider, is that these discussions were ongoing. And as I mentioned, the supervisor, but also the discussions that I know Curtis and his peers have had in other communities, particularly in the western suburban area, about what we are doing as a region or as a metro to prepare for that inevitable ramping back up. And again, more importantly, to provide that type of financial assistance, albeit maybe small in some cases, but some financial assistance to keep people viable until things start getting back to normal. And so again, the discussions have been primarily, the big discussions have been through the county and with the Des Moines Partnership. As I mentioned in my memo, that they're looking at fundraising, both private and public sector sources, to create a pool of money that would be available particularly for small businesses. And the email, or the attachment I sent out earlier this morning entitled the Des Moines Small Business Relief Grants. That is, at least at this point in time, the working document that all of us are looking at that has been spearheaded again by all the entities to look at creating these grants that would be eligible, and the grant eligibility is listed in those in that page to make available to particularly smaller operations. They are from anywhere from 0 to 25 employees. They're the programs that may get overlooked by both federal or state assistance that may be out there, and are probably the ones that are at greatest risk of failure given the current economic conditions. Again, I would let Supervisor Brownell go over some of the more specific details on this, but our conversation that we wanted to have today, and we've had this again at staff level and with the mayor, and a number of us were involved in a conversation that was, I'll say, metro-wide yesterday, sponsored by the Des Moines Partnership, was basic question: are we interested in participating? Is the city of Urbandale willing to provide some financial input to a program that will benefit local businesses? And again, I would defer to Supervisor Brownell because he's been doing a lot of this work and legwork, so it's probably second nature to him. So, you know, the other opportunities would be to be able to tap into other monies. But, you know, one of the things that was asked originally was, would these monies stay with the city of Urbandale businesses? And yes, they would. Our investment, whatever that number is, would stay here locally, and then those businesses would be able to tap into other financial resources that are raised. Part of the criteria now is the physical location within Polk County. The obvious question for us, and as well as with our friends in Clive and West Des Moines that span multiple counties, how does that apply to us? And again, I think that is something that we can help direct. As you folks well know, that in Dallas County, our commercial activity is relatively light compared to our neighbors. In our discussion this morning, could we have between 10 and 15 businesses in Dallas County? That's probably about right now. Hopefully that will grow into the future, but our presence, our commercial presence, isn't as great as some of our neighbors. So for us, that is probably not as big a question about can we cross that border line. We still have our dollars to help direct. And also another portion of this program, which I think is real critical, is that there will be a third-party administrator. So that will help relieve the local governments and the other funding entities of having to make those decisions that may be at times a bit more parochial. That these will be decisions, although we will have input on that, you know, a lot of the heavy lift will be done by a third-party administrator that would take, you know, once a grant is made and once an application is developed and a grant is made, they're the ones who would process it and follow through. We would have help. We would help make that direction about who gets those monies. But again, a third-party administrator would do a significant portion of that work. I'm going to kind of back down now, and I would say to Supervisor Brownell, if you're still with us, did I leave anything else out? Because I know you have been extremely active in these conversations, and I'm probably glitching off a lot of notes that you and I have had conversations on. So you're more the author than I am, so I would defer to you.
Can you hear me okay? Can we hear me okay?
You're good.
Yeah, I'm kind of the author and kind of not. I've been working a lot. We should also mention Curtis Brown has been on the phone with me a lot too. So some of this is shared authorship or shared thinking gaps, I guess. A couple of things here is, I guess the questions I would have if I were you is this going to be enough? Is it going to take in everybody? And the answer to that is clearly no. We're going to be very short, and no matter what we do, we're not going to be able to satisfy the demand, which is too bad. You might remember last week, Governor Reynolds said that of the $24 million they had in IDEA funds, they had $148 million in applications. I don't know if we're looking at that kind of lopsided app versus revenues, but it'll be more than what we have for revenue, no doubt about it, in my mind. The other thing it takes in, AJ mentioned a couple folks we're trying to take in here, and those are your smaller businesses, very small businesses, and also from 0 to 25. Also includes sole proprietors. Somebody has a photography studio or something of that nature. This is for them too. If you have received IDEA funds or PPP funds, you are not eligible. Right now, it's considered that we want to have you in business for a year because we want to have folks that are likely to be successful. We're struggling with that one because we've got some folks out there that are good business people and have done a good job, but maybe started their business in July or August or something. So we're kind of dealing with that. But at some point, you got to draw the line, and whoever gets funded gets funded. There'll be a scoring metric for this done by the third party, which is the party. It's Iowa Center for Economics. They're working with the state right now on their SBA loans and so forth. So they've got expertise in this area, and they have an app for it, and they have the ability to score it and all that. AJ mentioned, would the money stay in Urbandale? The answer to that is yes. And if I'm the mayor or a council member in a certain city and I put money into this deal, I'm going to want to help my own businesses, which is completely understandable. What we have in addition to that is going to be county money. The county's got $200,000 in this, and we'll spread that across as much as we can across the county, and that'll go to everybody whether they participate or not. But it's not a 1-for-1 match. It's not even a 50-cent match. It's going to be less than that. Probably we're looking at 20% match, something of that nature. So in some cases, if you've got a small city, it's not going to be very much. The way that we kind of looked at this, and this can be, you can contribute anything you want, all right? But people want to know what's the number we're looking at. And what we've looked at is try to find some logical way to come up with a number. And what we're using is City of Des Moines is in for 1.5 million. Of that 1.5, 500,000 of it is local money. The other million is CDBG money, and which is meaningful. I'm not dismissing it at all, but 500,000 is the local money. What's been suggested by many suburbs, including some folks in Urbandale, has been, why don't we use $500,000 that Des Moines putting up as a denominator, and then whatever percentage our city is of the Des Moines population would be the percentage of $500,000 put in. If we use that method, I sent this over to Bob and AJ last night for them to look at, and this is just a suggestion. Use that method. Your population in both counties is about 44,000. That's 20% of Des Moines, and so your contribution would be 101, almost $102,000. That would be the suggested contribution. The county would match that with $20,000. You'd have 122 to play with. That doesn't come to you in the form of a check. It just gets allocated to the third party, and the third party knows that this is what we have. The city could then say, I want my grants to be capped at $5,000 or $7,000 or whatever it is. The program now contemplates a grant cap at $15,000. Probably most grants are going to be in the $6,000 to $7,000 range. The reason I say that is because this originated with the idea that we would maybe pick up a month or two of rent for a sole proprietor or a small business somewhere, and that's kind of the numbers that we were getting back with $7,000, $8,000, something like that. So that would give you an idea of how big or small it's going to be. If I've got a small cafe and it's barely hanging on, I'm getting 2 or 3 takeout orders a day, and maybe at most, $7,000, $8,000 may be pretty meaningful. And what's going to happen if they don't get it? So, but this is set up for taxpayers. There's other pots of money for nonprofits and charities and those kinds of things. We're very cognizant of that, very concerned about it. But this is for taxpayers that are paying property taxes in your town. So there may be an owner of a business that lives in Johnston, but his storefront's in Urbandale. It's an Urbandale business from our perspective. So that's that. What is not counted into these match numbers at all is the private sector money, which we're hoping to be about $1 million. It may not be, but we're hoping for $1 million. So if the private sector comes into the $1 million, then your match goes up. If Urbandale, for example, said, well, you know what, I don't think 101,000 is enough. We want to put in 120,000, then your match goes up, still 20%. So we're trying to design this so that more is more and less is less. Another question you might have is, well, what if City X, let's take Clyde, for example, since I live there, their suggested amount is $39,600, about $40,000. Their match would be $7,900 in that case, for a total of $47,000. Let's say they don't come in at all. would they still get the $7,900? The answer is yes, they would. It just wouldn't go very far. The pool would be much smaller. If I'm a private sector company, they may not. They may say we're only going to contribute to entities that are contributing. We don't know. We haven't heard any rules come out of them yet, and we're still kind of hosting conversations with them through the partnership. But the other question we get is, well, what if my money goes to a business in Dallas County? And AJ's talked about that. Obviously, we would prefer it if our money was used in Polk County. But frankly, we're here to help people. We're not here to audit them and audit anybody. We don't have a team of auditors following this money around and make sure it just goes to Polk County or anything else. If some money slides into Dallas County business or something like that, we're going to look the other way. That's going to be kind of up to you whether you want to do that or not. I envision that you will have to say over where this money goes. I think the third party will vet these applicants, score them, and then they'll turn it over to whomever you want to turn it over to, Curtis, AJ, some committee, and you could say, yeah, that looks great, or it doesn't look so great. We want to change it this way or that. So you're going to have quite a bit of control over it. You're just not going to have the administrative part of it, having to score this stuff and take the apps and say no to people, basically. So that's kind of the overall situation. I know I've covered it pretty fast. We'd like to see $3 million in the pool in general. With Des Moines 1.5 and everybody's suggested allocations in there, it would add up to 2.3, which is probably above what we'd actually get because we've got some smaller cities in there that just aren't going to be able to play at all. But Urbandale is one of our bigger ones, and I think the reaction from folks in Urbandale that I've talked to, elected officials at least, has been pretty positive so far. And I hope we can do this. I hope we can help some folks out. These are going to be people that have really taken it on the chin over this, and we don't know when things are going to open up again. But I would think that they're going to be small enough businesses. They'd be on the front lines of getting back to business again, and we want to be there for them to help them out and help them be successful if we can. We can't help everybody, unfortunately, but we can help as many as we can. Like I said yesterday in the call, this will not be perfect, but it will be good, and that's all we can hope for. So AJ, that's about all I had on this. If there's any questions, obviously, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Thank you. Curtis, if you could weigh in a little bit, contacts that we've had from local businesses?
Sure. And can I get a thumbs up from you on if my audio is good? Sounds great. Aaron and I have been talking to a number of businesses across Urbandale. We probably formally contacted around a couple dozen now. And as we've might have mentioned before, the results are uneven. Some businesses are doing okay if they provide services to people who need their services during this quarantine time. Others have told us revenues are down 90%. I talked to one business owner who said he was sitting at his desk trying to figure out which bill to pay first. So we know the need is out there. We know too that people have been asking us how they can tap into the IDA funds, different things on the PPP. Aaron and I were just on a call this morning with the Greater Des Moines Partnership and learned that of maybe 14,000 applications almost to IDA, they were really only able to fund about 1,300 of those. So as Supervisor Brownell said, and as we're all starting to become aware, the need is out there. And the fact of the matter is there is probably no way to cover all the need. But just based on the conversations we had, it sounds like there are people out there who would sure appreciate it. And we have the questions from some business owners in Urbandale. Is the city doing anything to help? So far, we've just been able to say, well, we can provide technical assistance and things like that. But the question has been asked.
Thanks, Curtis. And I've been working with Curtis and AJ and on the conference call yesterday with the partnership too. So I think from standpoint from Urbandale, we need to participate. This is not going to be a perfect program, but it's certainly designed to help those who are falling in the cracks on some other programs. And we are going to be able to help Urbandale businesses. So I think we need to keep that in mind, and also keep in mind that these are the most vulnerable businesses. They're sole proprietors, 25 employees or less generally, and so these are going to be folks that if they don't get this assistance, they're going to be looking for assistance in other means as well. So I think we're going to be making the best good that we can by doing this. So I would heartily support that we participate in this. And I was looking at, before I even saw Bob's number yesterday, I had 100,000 in my head. I think that's what we're kind of throwing around, and that's right about where we are as far as a gauge is 100,000 or 102,000. So, and I've talked to Nikki and AJ and Curtis from a budgetary standpoint, and maybe AJ, you want to have Nikki just kind of address what we're looking at budget wise, where we would, first of all, that we feel that this will not put us in jeopardy budget wise, that we have the capacity to do this without torpedoing the budget at the same time.
Nikki, are you still on?
Yep. Can you hear me? Give me the.
Yep, there you go.
Okay. The mayor said the current budget has $100,000 in contingency, and that is a council approved item that can be approved at any time during the budget year for a specific authorized purpose. So yes, the budget already allows for that. We would have $100,000 available within the current budget that is technically budgeted for, just needs your authorization to spend. The other option was loan fund, which one-time money versus contingency is general fund. So those funds are available and have a replenishment versus the revolving loan fund, which is its own separate fund, but those funds are intended to be reused and resent out in the form of economic development loans. So currently we have both of those options at our disposal to use, either and or both and or some mix of are both available to council based on your direction.
And just to clarify, we're talking the current year's budget, not the budget we approved in January. We are still in fiscal year 20, so this would be the existing budget that we have right now.
Correct. You have those funds in budgets. There's $100,000 in every single annual budget that we do to allow for that, for a outstanding circumstance, ice storms, anything like that that we possibly need that we would not then have to amend. So that's why we do that contingency amount in there, but it does require authorization each year. So you have that funding available in the current budget, which has not yet been spent for the year. And then again, July 1, the new budget also has that amount. So you would have a second wave availability of funding as well, or if you want to do 50 out of this year, 50 out of next year, depending on the timing, we have that technically 2 sets of contingency funding available, and both out of general fund.
Well, I would think I'm in favor of it. I would also think that we should consider some of our Polk County lost funds coming in, use this. What is going on? I'm not sure I want to drain the contingency fund for this, as we may very well need it for other things coming up.
Hey, this is Matt Blake. I actually got on and I have to leave immediately, but I'm really for it. And my video is not working, but I have a couple questions. I know that you said that Curtis, that you've had conversations with businesses. Are you keeping a tallied report of local at-stress businesses to see if are we tracking that somehow? Before we approve it, I would like to just have a look at the scoring factors just to see what they're like, and just to see what mostly out of curiosity. And then beyond this relief, are there other levers we can pull It's such as, I don't know, is there some delays in property tax that they still have to pay, but we can delay it somehow, maybe some utility credits of some sort. Then have we also talked to people like our land developers and those that are rent to, if there's ways that we can work with delaying of those payments as well? Just looking at beyond just the 100,000, is there other tools? And with that, I have to leave because I have a call with the governor's office at 1. So thank you all. I'm in and out.
Matt, before you go quickly, are you generally okay with this action item probably next Tuesday? So
My first thing, I'm very happy with this and would like to even be more aggressive if we can find other ways. So
good. All right. Thank you.
Mayor, I could jump in on his first question with regard to tracking. So really the context that Aaron and I have been very qualitative, really just trying to make an effort to touch base with businesses in different sectors and then receiving some inbound calls. The two sources of more quantitative data, I guess, we would have is one, the Greater Des Moines Partnership ran a survey, and I think there were about 70 responses from Urbandale. Aaron, give me a thumbs up if that's correct. Thank you. And then IEDA also ran a statewide survey, and we had quite a bit more responses from Urbandale. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to get that data back from IEDA yet, but that would be the best data that we would have to rely on. But we'll send over to AJ the Greater Des Moines Partnership data so you can at least see that for now.
Let me chime in here for a moment, guys. How was this going to be administered? I know Bob talked about a third party administrator, but is there going to be some type of records cap on who? And I wasn't quite sure on what's the criteria why one business may be accepted but another one would not, or the funding level. Maybe somebody shed some light on that for me.
Curtis, do you want to maybe or AJ? I don't care. Bob, I know Bob Brownell had to leave. He had a 1 o'clock call too, so he just noted to me that he.
Okay, I'll take a stab at it real quick. This is AJ. Dave, you're right. I understand the conversations I've been involved with. It was felt that you'd have someone out there that would be independent from. They take away that burden from any people who wanted to participate in local government. That they would have a fiduciary responsibility in as much as they knew how much money would be available for each community, and that there is a scoring sheet, if you will, that a draft one that they prepared, and it has a number of different criteria, like a loan document, if you will, asking for income, expenses, those type of things. And so my presumption is that they'll make determinations based on the I hate to say the solvency, but the predominance of success versus failure. They're going to try to address those that they think are going to be the most successful. It's going to help bridge that gap. So there will be, my guess is that, and we can ask that when it finalizes, that there will be some type of audit requirement. And as we've mentioned, if our number is $100,000, and I know Nikki will chime in on this, you're going to want an accounting for how those monies were spent, who got what. And again, it's no guarantee that if you lend company A money, or provided in a grant, I should say, that they're going to be successful and that will get them to the next level of being successful or sustaining. But at least you'll have an accounting process set up and it's an audit trail, if you will, that you'll be able to say that who got what, are they still going? I'm sure there's going to be follow-up. And as there's mentioned, there may be a second round that they come back to cities, depending upon whole host of things that are beyond our control. When the all clear signal is given, when are people going to feel safe to get back into the water? And it's going to probably be a while until some other things are in place. So we may be looking at two, but kind of a long answer to your short question. I believe that there's going to be a method to the madness, and there's going to be accountability and an audit trail that we can come back as a community and point to to our residents and to our taxpayers to say, this is how this money was invested back into local businesses.
And Dave, I think, again, I think as AJ said, and to amplify it, and from what Bob also said too, is first of all, anybody that's going to get this is not previously qualified for any other state or federal funds. That's one thing.
Yeah.
And secondly, there will be accountability as much as we can. Do we have it pinned down completely? No, that'd be the first to admit it. But this is something where speed matters at this point. But at the end of the day, the intent is to make this as good as possible and to get some effective help to folks that really need it right now. If we wait till we had the program perfect, it won't do any good. So we need to do the very best job that we can at this point in time, but also recognize that right now also speed matters as well.
Good, good. That sounded like a great program. I think that it's favorable.
So the intent would be then that I think the partnership would ideally, we don't know for sure yet, but we'll be back in touch with the partnership. But I think ideally, if we have we're not taking a roll call today. We don't have an action item for today, but I'd like to at least know that we have general consensus to proceed forward. And if we do, then the idea would be that we would notify the partnership that we are essentially in for this at the level we're talking about, probably at the $100,000 level. And then we would have an action item. There may be a press release ideally later this week that they'd like to get out. And then we would have an action item on the council meeting for next Tuesday to ratify.
And then when it is awarded to those businesses, we will have that list to know who in Urbandale received them and the amount that they received.
Oh, of course. And as Bob said, I think again, the method is not exactly pinned down, but I have a feeling that we will have some input on who might be awarded some. And of course, yes, there's going to be a full accounting of who gets what as well.
I've got questions. I'm sorry, I got booted out. Our Wi-Fi can't possibly handle the number of devices that we have going in our house right now. So I'm sure most of you know that we have some small businesses in Minnesota, and I just have had some limited experience with payroll protection and the application process, and it's exceedingly complicated. And then, to have the, it's only a grant if you are able to hire people back in 8 to 10 weeks, and then you don't know, who knows what's going to be happening in 8 to 10 weeks. Are the guidelines that we're setting up here going to be a little more flexible and terms of time frame or deliverables? I mean, I heard Bob talk about, helping to pay rent. I mean, that's a huge deal. And, to have, $5,000 to go towards a month or two businesses, I think.
Yeah. Again, you want to chime in on that?
Well, yeah, great questions, Bridget, because I think those are some of the questions that we had yesterday on our big call-in show, if you will, that how's this going to be used and what latitude our business going to have? Is it going to be toward rent? Is it going to be toward payroll? Is it going to be paying past due bills? I think there's still going to be a lot of flexibility. I do have, and I didn't send it out because I just didn't know how far we get in this conversation, but I do have, and I have to stress this, a draft of what they're putting together for an application. And again, the consensus of the group discussion yesterday was you got to make it simple. You got to make it that, again, as you made reference to, you don't need a PhD in economics to fill out the application. And so I know that's a real bugaboo for people looking at state or federal programs, and you want to make it as easy as possible, and that was reiterated yesterday. So I'll send that out, and if we have suggestions from those of you who maybe had experience with these, Bridget, you mentioned your experience in Minnesota. Adam, I know you've got an extensive financial background, your background in in finances, but in the banking industry as well. If you have suggestions that you think makes it easier, let us know so we can bring that to the partnership and say, here's things that, have you thought of? And my guess is they have, because I think the goal is that everybody wants to make it easy.
And again, the best part of this is that we are working together as a region. We're not out there doing it all on our own either. So there will be some structure from a regional standpoint, and everybody wants to. This is the best for the entire region. So, but we do have a chance by doing this is to take the benefit of the regional structure, but also directly affect and impact positively Urbandale business.
Bob, if you're looking for consensus, I'm definitely in favor of it. I'd like to see something on the agenda sooner rather than later.
And this is Adam, and I'm also in favor of just like to maybe understand the timing of, can we truly spread this out among 2 budget cycles, or does the money need to happen all before July 1? So that's kind of
actually, Adam, we depending on the length of where we are, I think the first 100,000 we take out of this budget, and frankly, we may have to look at a phase 2 out of the next year's budget. We're in uncharted territory right now. I think we just
I've
need
got
to take
another
this one.
question.
Go ahead, Bridget.
As Dallas County resident here, does Dallas County do think about things like this, or this is a big but
I think we should probably just count on the fact that we're going to be participating in this. And as Bob said, I think if money goes to Dallas County businesses, we'll look at that. But I don't think the county from that standpoint is doing anything. I have not spoken to any of the Dallas County supervisors, but I certainly haven't heard any discussion in that regard, nor have I heard Clive or West Des Moines say that Dallas County was doing anything either. So I get your point.
Well, that's
though.
no surprise, but that's a bigger issue to tackle later.
But I'd be willing, if the third-party administrator starts throwing up a roadblock because they're not in Polk County, I think we just, as a group, decide we can fund that separately in order to keep those businesses in the same category as the Polk County businesses.
Yeah. I don't think that's going to be a problem.
I was just going to make a quick comment about that. My understanding was let all the applications come in, then as they sort out and check the boxes, well, this one's Urbandale, but Dallas County, then we'd have the opportunity to take a closer look at that. And as the supervisor suggested, because we've got our money in there, and then also the partnership is trying to raise that private money, the private money could cross county lines as well. So there's some leveraging of our contribution with the private and county contribution too.
All right. I want to thank also, we have some folks that have sat in on this from the Economic Development Advisory Board too as well. So I want to thank them for, and again, all their continued efforts and work on this as well. So thank you guys for sitting in on this and doing what you've done as well. So with that, we are beyond our hour. I know even though we're virtual, I want to respect everybody's time. So we will proceed forward. Hearing no objection otherwise, I'm going to direct AJ and Curtis to proceed forward, and with the idea that we'll have an item on the agenda for next Tuesday for formal approval, if that's right.
Good.
Can I ask a question about the NFC? I think it sounded like there was some consensus that we wanted to do that, but what is that for AJ? What does that look like for you? Obviously, this is not as pressing as what we're talking about right now, but how do you see that rolling out from the staff side of things?
Bridget, this is AJ. Looking at my notes, I seem to sense there was a consensus for more of dollars for rehab type project working with Mid-America grant monies. Now that those are gone, but John has probably, of anybody on our staff, has probably a greater insight to that. And so what I would do with John right now is I'd have him work with Stephanie to look at where we can be, structured around a rehab-based program. And unless I'm hearing differently from you folks, that's the vibe I heard, is that you were more inclined to do the rehab program than anything else. And that's our walk before we run type of thing, and see what kind of results we get. And then kind of modify that as rehab, using those census tracts she identified, and using a recommended number from her. How much should we commit to that? And then I'll have him work on that based on a rehab component, if that's okay with everybody.
That sounds good.
All right.
All right. With that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn. Carberry Montgomery.
Motion by Bridget. Is there a second?
Second by Pogie.
All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed? All right, everyone. Thank you very much. We're adjourned. Have a safe and good day. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.